I would like to bring City Council regular meeting to order. We will start our meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to invite Francisco to lead us for Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Barr, could you please make the roll call, please?
Councilmember Felder,
Here.
Councilmember Lowe,
Here.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Here?
Mayor Dean.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. This meeting will be conducted in person, fortunately, and also is available for another Zoom. So this meeting is so-called hybrid. Anybody want to participate, visit the meeting, you can watch on the TV, channel 27. Also, you can click the agenda notice that are highlighted, linked to your YouTube. If anybody doesn't have both iPhone or the computer, also you can participate, visit the meeting. You just make a quick phone call. The number is 669-900-9128. You dial the star and the 9, that means you raise your hand, and you will be recognized by our staff. You can start your public comments. Today, we don't have any in the closed section to report. Next, I would like to ask our colleague if any changes for our tonight's agenda.
One change on the presentation from Andrew Hennings. He will come later in the meeting, his new babies, and that he needs to help get to bed.
That's great. Yeah. All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Yes.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Thank you so much. Item number 1 agenda, that is comments from the public. Right now, it's your time to make the comments for those items not appearing on this tonight's agenda. You can use your 3 minutes or less, making a public comment. Great. Yeah, take your time.
Good evening. My name is Armando Zimmerman. I live on West Spain Street between 2nd and 3rd, and I've lived there for almost 11 years. So the reason I'm here this evening is I recently read an interesting article. Got to put it's actually an editorial from the Washington Post, and the title is "Why Bad Driving Habits from the Pandemic Might Be Here to Stay," and then it's just a small snippet. A troubling possibility is that the changing of the mix of who was driving changed the culture of American roads, making it less law-abiding and more aggressive. And it's an opinion piece. I have 2 anecdotes to share. Last week, my neighbor was out in front of her house on Spain Street, and she was picking up a newspaper, and she happened to see a little child, she described it, I wasn't there, running east on Spain Street. So, being an ex-teacher, she said, that's not good, and she took off after this kid, and mid-block, here's 2nd Street, kid keeps running. She's running after him. He turns and goes south on 2nd Street, West 2nd. She catches up to him at one point, but he takes off again, still in the street. Well, a car comes by and yells at her, why is her kid on the street and can't she take care of him? And said some other nasty things. And she's saying, but in the meantime, she's saying, I need help, call 911. So another car goes by and she gets, an earful of not the same nastiness that from the first guy, but still, what's going on here, get out of the street, and so forth. Well, the kid goes all the way down to Napa Street and then somehow gets into the parking lot at 7-Eleven, and she's able to corral him at 7-Eleven. In the meantime, the first driver is already in the store. So it kind of, I don't know if he approached her or whatever. I wasn't there, but, so it's anecdotal, but it's partly hearsay on my part. But nonetheless, he then finds out that this is not her child. And he goes, oh, I didn't know it wasn't your child. I'm sorry, or something like that. And she's thinking, what does it matter if it's my child or not? The kid's in the middle of the street. But obviously, this first driver, his priority was to get to 7-Eleven. Okay? Not to take care of her or this kid. By the way, my neighbor is putting herself in danger because she's out in the street also. That's where the kid is.
All right. Thank you.
Okay? That's my first anecdote. Do I have any time left?
Time is over,
Oh,
unfortunately.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, well then.
Yeah.
I had
Try
another
next
one.
time.
I'll come
Yeah.
back.
Okay.
I'll come back.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Any more public comments? How about on the Zoom? Yeah, just take time.
I have a question. My comments are in regards to the safe parking program, so should I wait until you're discussing the safe?
Yes, should be wait. Yes. Mhm. Thank you.
There's no hands being raised on the public
All right.
for Zoom.
So let's close the public comment. Let's move to the next agenda, meeting dedications. Today, we don't have, right? Yeah, okay. Agenda number 3, presentation. We just gonna change the order, 3.2. Right now is a 3. We started as 3.2. Right now is a Sonoma Contained Water Agency drafting the water transmission the budget report.
Mayor Ding, we're trying to send her the Zoom link. Apparently,
Sure.
she didn't get it. So if you give me just a second, I'll try and get her, and we may have to move her later as well.
Consent.
It's fine.
Can you do consent first? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Let's move to agenda number 4, consent on the calendar. Today we have 4 items. Anybody want to pull out for special
Seeing
discussion?
no one pulling anything, I'd like to move approval of the consent calendar.
Yeah. Let me open to the public, if any in the comments. No? All right, let's take the motion. We have the motion. Who in the second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Yes?
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Agenda number 5, public in the hearing. Today, we don't have the public hearing. Let's move to agenda number 6, regular calendar. 6.1, adoption of resolution authorizing the city manager to extend memorandum of the understanding with the Sonoma overnight support for the operation of the safe parking program from the April 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2022. City Manager Ms. Su, could you please give a background?
Good evening, Mayor Ding and City Council members. In November 2019, the city approved an MOU with Sonoma Overnight Support, SOS, to operate a safe parking program in the City of Sonoma's Police Department parking lot at 175 First Street West. The program shares the same parking lot that is used by the Field of Dreams for recreational sports programs. The program currently includes up to 10 parking spaces that are available on a permit basis between the hours of 10 p.m. and 9 a.m. To be eligible for the program, SOS requires participants to adhere to a specific set of rules and guidelines, and any participant who violates these rules can be permanently exited from the program and may also risk losing access to the day services offered at the Haven. The City of Sonoma annually provides $30,000 for SOS for the shelter management operations, and then in fiscal year 21-22, the city budgeted an additional $30,000 to help SOS fund the safe parking program. Finally, in addition, the city provides the building where the Haven is housed free of charge. On December 1st, 2021, City Council approved an extension of the MOU through March 31st, 2022. But during that meeting, City Council had a lengthy discussion regarding the compatibility of the safe parking program and the uses of the Field of Dreams. So as part of its approval of the MOU extension on that date, City Council requested that staff and SOS provide updates on their efforts to find alternative locations for the safe parking program and asked that the information be provided as soon as possible. At the February 2nd council meeting, staff and SOS did provide reports on their efforts to find an alternative site for safe parking. At the meeting, city staff and SOS asserted that they had reached out to all community partners, including churches, regarding an interim location for the parking program. Just in general, community partners, including churches, have indicated that the safe parking program is generally incompatible with their daily operations, would probably affect the parking needs of their operations, and or they don't have the facilities to meet the program's needs. Staff also reached out to the County of Sonoma twice regarding the use of the Veterans Building parking lot, and we were told that the program would conflict with the Veteran Building's uses and regulations, that they have many events planned now, especially since the pandemic restrictions are lifted and they don't have any additional parking spaces for the program. Staff also explored two concepts for operating a safe parking program at the city's Corporation Yard on 8th Street. One idea was to move the existing Haven building to the Corporation Yard, and the other was to provide just the needed services, restroom, laundry, and shower facilities for the safe parking program. Both models had significant capital costs and were eventually rejected by City Council. So due to the expiration of the safe parking program on March 31st, it was anticipated that staff would provide a plan for the safe parking program at the March 2nd council meeting. However, on February 16th, I was appointed acting city manager, and due to the time constraints, I just wasn't able to prepare a staff report with updates for the MOU extension. So that's why we're bringing it forward tonight. Homelessness is a regional as well as a city issue. Since February 16th, my staff and I have reached out to many of the homeless advocates and providers in Sonoma County, including Dave Kiff, interim director of the Sonoma County Community Development Commission, the CDC. The CDC serves as Sonoma County's lead agency, coordinating services, planning efforts, and funding for homelessness services. On February 18th, Mayor Ding, Councilmember Agramonte, and myself attended a meeting organized by Supervisor Susan Gorin, Dave Kiff, and county staff to discuss Sonoma Valley homelessness issues. At the meeting, it was discussed that the Sonoma County CDC might have matching funds available for a study focused specifically on coordination of existing services in Sonoma and the Valley. The CDC's interest in the study was that it would help to identify gaps in the continuum of care, Sonoma County Homeless Management Information System, and provide solutions for bridging the gaps. On March 4th, I met with Kathy King, Executive Director of SOS, and Police Chief Rodriguez. It was really the first time that I'd been able to meet with Kathy King. It was a really informative meeting where Kathy provided information about all the services SOS provides. And I'm going to put one of the charts that she provided up on the screen. The chart shows that 799 individuals used SOS services for the calendar year 2021. The chart specifies that 50% of their services went towards providing meals, 26% for vaccination clinics, with smaller percentages for showers, laundry, food delivery, case management, wintertime shelter, and hotel vouchers. As the chart illustrates, 2% of SOS services were devoted to the safe parking program. Kathy also indicated that the number of meals served in 2021 by SOS has tripled since 2019, and that 91% of the meals go to Sonoma Valley residents. Also on March 4th, SOS met with key members of the Field of Dreams and members of the police department. As staff, myself was not in attendance at the meeting. Representatives of SOS and the Field of Dreams may comment on the meeting during public comment. On March 7th, I met with Annie Falandes of Homeless Action Sonoma, HAS, and this was another informative meeting where she described her work with the homeless community as well as her plans for a low-barrier navigation center on Highway 12. This project has been funded by donations in the County of Sonoma and is slated to open soon. The City of Sonoma and the Valley are extremely fortunate to have so many amazing women and men who advocate and are committed to working with our homeless community. Just in the last 3 weeks, what I've learned about homelessness is that I don't know anything at all, and that there's a lot of misconceptions about homelessness. So, city staff, we're not experts on homelessness. And as there's limited time available to devote to this very critical issue, staff is recommending that the city hire a consultant who has specialized expertise in homelessness. This contractor will help evaluate all the services currently offered in Sonoma as well as the Valley and assess how the city and county's efforts towards the continuum of care are working for the homeless community. This will help the city make an informed decision on the safe parking program going forward, as well as identify recommendations for addressing the broader issues of homelessness service needs. So with the help of Dave Kiff, he actually suggested I contact Andrew Henning, who is a consultant that has extensive experience working with public agencies to solve complex social challenges, including measurably reducing homelessness, spurring civic innovation, and redesigning systems of care for our vulnerable community members. So based on conversations with Mr. Henning, I solicited a 90-day proposal, and with council approval, we'll hire Mr. Henning to evaluate all the homelessness programs that are currently offered in the city and valley. He will work in collaboration with current community providers and stakeholders, and then provide recommendations for staff and city council to make informed decisions. In Andrew's words, in order to make decisions about the parts, it is critical to look at the whole. The contract with Andrew Henning would begin on April 1st and be completed by June 30th, 2022. The proposal is attached as Exhibit A to the staff report, and there are sufficient funds in the city manager's budget to cover the cost of the not-to-exceed amount of $24,000. Later in tonight's meeting, Mr. Henning will provide a presentation on the services he proposes to provide for the city. So staff is recommending the SOS Safe Parking MOU be extended until June 30th, 2022. This will allow staff sufficient time to devise an informed strategic plan about homelessness with the assistance of Andrew Henning. We will also determine the viability of a jointly funded Sonoma Valley homelessness study, which was discussed at the meeting with the city and the county on February 18th. Finally, this will provide enough time for further evaluation of alternative SOS program sites in Sonoma Valley. So staff is recommending that the council adopt the resolution authorizing the city manager to extend the MOU with Sonoma Overnight Support for the operation of a safe parking program from April 1st to June 30th, 2022. and I can answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your detailed report and your great effort as well. Before we start to discuss, I will have a simple statement for myself. I'm the board member for the SOS. According to a letter sent by California State Fair Political Practice Commission, April 30th, it says, Councilmember Dean has no any disqualifying conflict of the interest concerning with any SOS decision making. So basically, I'm allowed to discuss any issues with the SOS, also make the decision. Thank you. So right, we discuss on our council first.
I have comments or questions?
Yeah, comments, yes.
Questions first.
A question. So the $75,000 that was set aside, if they find property, that might be considered to,
Well, the $75,000 that was set aside was actually for repairs to the Haven.
Right.
And because we didn't set it aside, it was actually budgeted and then it was removed from the budget pending because at the time, I mean, obviously we've been looking for alternative sites, and so we just took it out of the budget. So it would be need to be re-brought back. But it was really the use of the $75,000 was for repairs to the Haven building. So-
okay. And I saw someone in here, I'm sorry, I lost it. I circled it and I can't find it about the 75,000. And I think it says something, oh boy, can somebody find the,
In my staff report?
yes.
Okay, it was after, it was in the first section. Hang on,
Oh, here it is.
yeah.
Okay. For fiscal year 21-22, the city budgeted an additional $30,000 to fund the safe parking program. $75,000 for building maintenance improvements at the Haven was also budgeted. However, it was removed from the final adopted budget based on the possibility of a new site and facility for SOS services. Okay, thank you. It is a great report. It's very hard, and it's straight up learning curve. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Questions or discuss? No questions. All right, let me now open to the public.
Hi, my name is Dale Sones, and I am I've been a volunteer at SOS for 1.5 years. And first of all, I don't understand why this is even an issue. I worked with the homeless when I lived in Marin for 6 years. And we had a program called the REST program where families would feed and sit down with the homeless. We're in a totally different situation now. But my concern is, why are these families so concerned about the homeless sharing a parking lot with the homeless that are only there from 10 at night to 9 in the morning? Why is that such a problem and concern for them that they need to make this an issue and cause our limited budget for all of us that work, diligently for SOS, and I'm only a volunteer, to get all worried and try to find alternate, parking, because why? That's doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm livid about it because it's a great opportunity for the parents to have a discussion with their children that not everyone in the world lives the kind of life these children live. Our society our community shouldn't be entitled in every aspect. We used to be just farmers and small business owners and hardworking people. I feel like we are creating this us and them with the wealthy and the poor. And I feel like the homeless here deserve the respect, and they deserve to not have to be, moved around at the whim of people that don't like to see them in the parking lot. That's all.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name's Andrew Fenton. I'm a father here in Sonoma, and I just wanted to first comment to the last speaker. I'm a father here. I have kids who play at the Field of Dreams. I understand her concern and what she says, but I don't know if she's aware of the history of some of the interactions with youth in the past with individuals who have been associated with the Haven. But they have not been positive, and some of those interactions continue to be negative. So I don't think that this is a matter of us wanting to hide the homeless. There's a time when I want my children to interact with the homeless. We'll do events and they'll go to the soup kitchen, but I don't want to have to bring my daughter to the softball game and then open up a topic about homelessness. That's not the appropriate time. In reality, it's really basic that the usage of the parking lot and of a Field of Dreams where kids play, and to have the Haven there, it's incompatible. It's really simple. I mean, that seems obvious to me, not just because of the past, and we all know what happened in the past. I know they've increased security measures, but ongoing issues. I've see it myself. I've talked with other fathers who have kids at the Field of Dreams. It's an ongoing issue. I'm not blaming the people who use the services there. The reality is, I'm an emergency physician. I take care of homeless people all the time, every day, today. I don't blame them for being homeless. I don't blame them for their situation. There is an association between homelessness and substance abuse, mental health abuse, criminal justice history. So that's an association that's real. We can't deny it. We can't put our head in the sand. We have to realize that it's just incompatible. We have kids going there to play, and we have the cars that are parked. Most of the cars do leave. Some stay for the day services. We need to take the $25,000 for the consultant, take the $75,000 for improvements, put it together, and begin building a nice facility for these people on 8th Street East. It's time to start doing that now. I want to see in this resolution a recognition that this use of the parking lot is incompatible. I don't see that. I don't see that in the resolution. Like, we need to understand that we need to find a new spot for these folks that's safe, that has all the services that they have, but is not a children's fields parking lot. I mean, it's really simple to me. So I'd like to see that in the resolution. As much as I understand that we want to use the consultant to get more information, what I'm not seeing is that, I don't want this just to be kicked down the road. I really want to see something from this council that says we understand the incompatibility and we're working to find an alternate spot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Good. Council, Mayor, thank you. David Villat, I'm also a father in town. I've had daughter play at the field here, and really want to echo what Dr. Fenton said, which is, as our kids are emerging from this pandemic and really have had nowhere to go other than their homes, this is really in Sonoma. We have a handful of parks, we have the schools, and we have the Field of Dreams. And really appreciate what you do. I've also volunteered with homeless, spent 5 years with Sonoma County Search and Rescue, helped evacuate homeless camps during the fires, and really understand that they have a special set of needs, and also know that it is a different group of our population, and to the point that we had a policy that we would have to go into these camps with law enforcement. And, as I look at now having a 16-year-old and having teenagers that sometimes we try to keep it not that way, but sometimes out after dark and look at, where do they have to go? They're going to gravitate towards these parks. And, being involved with law enforcement and knowing that in incorporating kids with these types of facilities is simply something that we need to avoid, and is an accident that is really waiting to happen. And we also I look at NASCAR. We quickly house 50,000 people for a weekend. There's enormous amounts of land, enormous amounts of facilities throughout the valley. and really ask the council to look at an end date, which I know this is expiring shortly, and very often to put an expiration will force a resolution, which is going to be the inevitable resolution, because keeping them, commingling them with our kids, with a facility that are sparse throughout the community for the kids is something that I ask that we don't preserve and don't continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Judith Walsh. I live at 18953 Viewcrest, and I've been a resident since 2011. I am the secretary of the board of SOS. We are only asking for an extension to June 30th. We are not asking to have safe parking at the lot forever. I understand that some members of the Field of Dreams have thought that. It is not true. We know we've outgrown the Haven. We've been looking very hard. I would echo Ms. Casey's comment that the city staff they are not experts on homeless, and they have not really been able to do very much to help so far. So we're really looking forward to the consultant helping us, and you. 8th Street East has been determined to be unworkable and infeasible. It's too far away. The homeless won't go. SOS is not going to administer it because it will not work. I think that one of the things that is important to understand is that we need to be able to put all of our services together, and we need to be able to have them in a place where people will come. And that's probably the Springs, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh.
Hello, everybody, council members, mayor, members of the public. My name is Francisco. I'm the Associate Director of Sonoma Overnight Support. The first thing I'd like to say to the Field of Dreams parents and students who go there, we hear you. We hear your concerns. It's something that we've grown and changed a lot over the past 2 years. As you know, our meal program has tripled in the past 3 years, and as such, we've had to make various adjustments to our programming, etc. One of those things is simply that, as Judith mentioned, that we've far outgrown the capabilities of the space in which we occupy. Our services are divided by 2 miles between the Springs Hall and the Haven. The Haven at the moment is the only location in town where homeless individuals can get showers and laundry services. The only location at all. And so while we recognize the needs of the Field of Dreams, we also recognize our needs, and we're working together to have more collaboration and communication between everybody in our community who needs to use these fields in this parking lot. The meeting that we had with the Field of Dreams was very productive and very, very encouraging. As a matter of fact, the leaders of the Field of Dreams said that they would support extending the safe parking until June 30th, especially considering our increased security and our hiring of a community liaison whose specific job it is to work with people from the safe parking lot and to help them in their struggles. I think the answer to this problem is not to enforce harder and harsher rules, but instead to provide more outlets for people to get the help that they need to get out of their dire situations. We look forward to more communication with the Field of Dreams, City Council, City staff, any other consultants that you may have as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, City Council and staff. I'm Russ Montgomery. I'm on the board of the Field of Dreams. I'm the field manager. And I want to speak for the board on their behalf. First of all, I want you all to know that that's been an excellent report and that we were much concerned about kicking the can down the road, as it were. We've been assured that, and Francisco and everyone else, that the Haven and the SOS has outgrown the facility. So even though it historically has been incompatible, that's really not the point. At this point in time, it's time to find a better location to provide more services, to take care of all of those folks with all their special needs. And with a coordinator that you contract hopefully this evening. We're looking forward to good things coming from that. However, I do want you to understand that the assumption is that come 90 days, that there's going to be a resolution to this issue and that there will no longer be any conflict of interest as it is with the Field of Dreams, the SOS, and so forth. So that being said, I'm here, I'm retired, I'm on the board. Everybody else works younger than I, have children. But I will say this, I think that the board represents what you might call the silent majority politically. So there are a lot of folks out there that are hoping and looking forward to you doing some action on this item in 90 days. That's not a threat, it's just the way it is. The other issue, and I've read through Francisco's notes, and I do think the notes are actually, it's an emotional time, so there's, it's a little, depending on your point of view, whether or not it's accurate, but I do think that security is a big issue, and I would recommend that, and we can do this, the board of the FOD can do this, that the security system that I would think would resolve many of these issues would be some type of a video system that's installed in the parking lot. And it is just the fact that it's there is a deterrent. I have to let you know that I do talk to a lot of law enforcement folks that go in and out, and there is a lot of drug deals that go on in that parking lot. And not necessarily SOS folks, but it turns out to be a location where that's very well known by law enforcement.
Excuse me, sir. The time is not over.
Okay, but in any event, I would like you to consider a video monitoring system for the parking lot and lighting. This would be ongoing. Not only would it help the SOS clients, but also everybody else in the community. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Not to interrupt, but Kathy King has her hand raised to speak on Zoom.
All right. And more public comments in this room? If not, I want to open the Zoom.
Hello? Can you hear me?
It's Kathy King.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
We can hear you, but we cannot see you.
Okay, that's okay. Good evening, Mayor Jack and City Council and the staff of the city. Thanks for your presentation, Sue. Once again, I come before you to encourage the City Council to vote positively to extend to SOS the parking until June 30th, 2022. For the past 90 days, 41 people have declared that they live in their cars. This is out of 208 currently homeless people that again have declared that they're homeless. Safe parking allows our clients to have a place to access the services, like was said before, a shower, laundry, case management. They can also get their meals at the Springs Hall. We served 5,088 meals in February alone, with more wraparound services, COVID shots, hygiene kits, jackets, socks. This is what homeless people need. Now, safe parking is a stepping stone into other temporary shelters such as Los Gilicos, and then into more permanent housing, because some of these people have jobs. They need to take a shower. They need to do their laundry. From December 1st until February 28th, SOS provided, with the county's help, 996 nights for 19 individuals, bed nights. When that program was ended by the county, all those people went back out onto the street. There is no place for anyone in Sonoma to stay. We continue to look for a site in buildings or land. We have been unsuccessful. We even looked at 3 this week. And like Sue Casey said, we had a great meeting with her and Orlando, also with the Field of Dreams, and explained our security system. They are there on the field from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 1 o'clock in the morning. And we also are hiring a community liaison. I text with Seamus Canning, the president of the Field of Dreams, and he told me a few days ago he could not be here, but he would support the extension until June 30th, 2022. SOS does want the parking lot to be safe for the entire community. And that's why we are paying for the security guard, we are paying for the porta potties, and we are paying for the liaison. That comes from our pockets. And so we understand that we've outgrown what we need, but we need to provide compassionate service to people who their homes are their cars. And once people realize that, it's shocking. It's shocking that all their belongings are in their cars. So compassionate service is what we do, and we want you to think about that when you take the vote, and I thank you for your consideration, and I will answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you have any more?
Doesn't appear that anybody else is raising their hand, but we can wait for just a couple
Yeah,
of
just a wait.
seconds. No, Mayor Ding, no one's raising their hand.
All right. Let me close the public comments.
So I really appreciate your coming forward, and I, especially the Field of Dreams, having been, I don't look like it, but I was a bad softball player. So I get it. I grew up in the city, and obviously there were some unfortunate things that happened there as well. But it's not right. It isn't right for parents to have to worry about something like that. But I also know that SOS is thinking about the same things, and I know that, I don't know for you who aren't maybe as informed as others from the Field of Dreams, they've looked at 9 properties that did not do well. We tried 8th Street East. I think the number was around 800,000 to set it up. So obviously, and that would be for a place where there's no transportation. So that in itself is a problem. So I guess, I mean, I'm a parent, and so I really understand how you feel. My son played basketball, and he was on a winning team, which I was annoyed by, because that means you have to travel everywhere to their games. But, you know, I'm sorry, that's my sense of humor, and, but I understand exactly. So when I hear you, Mr. Montgomery, say about the security system, I don't know, maybe someone from SOS can answer. Are there cameras there? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, Francisco? Yeah, would you come back up? Thank you.
I'll echo what they said, that there are cameras
Yes,
around the Haven itself, but not around the parking lot per se.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, so I appreciate that. I think I've shared my feelings. I think it's very important. I think the SOS really desires to have them move as well. I'm looking forward to Andrew Henning, the expense of that and the $75,000 really is an important thing, because as our city manager has said, we don't know what we're doing. I will tell you, it's a very difficult issue. And I won't go into the bad stuff if we kick everybody out, and if somebody gives them a free tent, we're doomed, because they can plant that tent anywhere, and if we can't move them and find another home, they will park people will be everywhere. So I really am encouraged by what I heard. Seamus wrote me a letter. I answered him. I haven't had a chance to talk to him, Mr. Montgomery. I appreciate your coming, and Dr. Fenton, and I think it was Palat. Thank you so much for coming to speak before us. I was a child, homeless child, for many, many years. I'm a miracle. I went to 9 schools before high school. So for me to be articulate is really amazing. So I was one of those kids. And so I understand. I really believe this is not the right place for us, for SOS. And I really believe that. And it is our hope that by June 30th, how we're going to do that, I think with Andrew Henning's help, because he knows all the inroads to the homeless issues. I'm telling you, there are millions of dollars out there, and we just know how to access them. We need to do certain things, and I know that there is another group here, Homeless Action Sonoma, which I think is wonderful. They'll be providing the tiny homes, and I think they have the land. The issue, of course, is as Supervisor Gorin said to Annie Philandis, the executive director, they have a mountain to climb to get this done. They were supposed to be operating in December, and that didn't happen. So it's a lot, to comply with all the federal and state regulations to be able to build a facility like this. But I appreciate you coming here. I hear you, I see you, and I appreciate the time that you've taken just to come in here, and I'm glad that we can do this, so it makes it much more beneficial to us all. Thank you.
Mayor Ding, I have actually, Chief Rodriguez just sent me a text and said T-Mobile did give them funds for a camera system, but they could have one ordered and have Public Works install it, if that would be. And I said yes with an exclamation point.
Thank you. That is great news. Thank you for sharing. All right. Yeah, Sandro.
Thank you. When we first looked at this extension, back in January, it was like there's no other place to go. There's nothing, and we had a very robust discussion regarding this issue. And it sort of came down to, okay, we'll extend it to, March, but we have to have reports. And we didn't really get much except for there's nothing, there's nowhere. And so I say that only because I feel like the report today was really good. I'm very encouraged by the meetings that have taken place between the Field of Dreams and the SOS. The fact that, immediately we find out, that your suggestion we can take care of it. Wow, that never happens, right? Just like that. How about that? And I think we're all in agreement that the incompatibility and the outgrowing of the area of the parking lot is absolutely, we have to do something. So at the last meeting, I kind of felt like, no one's really looking, no one's really trying, there's nothing happening. I kind of feel like that's not the case now. And I also feel like the SOS has, having that meeting and admitting that this is really something that needs to change, I think it will change. So I think we have to extend this to time certain, bring in the security that, it seems like Chief Rodriguez says we can do. And, I'm looking forward to hearing from Mr. Henning and, coming up with a solution that everyone can live with, because obviously this is not something that we want to go on and on. And when Mr. Henning is here, I'll have other questions regarding possibilities, but I will vote in favor of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a number of probably disjointed comments, but hopefully they'll have a common thread somewhere. First of all, this isn't the first time we've looked at an extension. We extended already in December for 120 days, and we made virtually no progress. So we're now facing it again for another 90 days with the optimism that some magic solution is going to appear and we'll be able to take care of the problem. And I guess I'm a bit skeptical on that. If I would be voting in favor of this resolution to extend for another 90 days, it would be with extreme reluctance. And I'm still holding open for presentation by Mr. Henning before I even begin to make up my mind on whether it's a possible solution or not, or he can come up with some possible solutions or not. I would agree that at the very least, the resolution should contain the words that that it recognizes there is an incompatible use. Because I think that has to be stated at the outset, and that's the reason that we're trying to find a solution. To just not admit that in the resolution, I think, is faulty. I certainly do not want to take any action on this item until we've had the report, the presentation by Mr. Henning. So I would hold further comments until that time.
So it's possible for presentation first, and then we come back to this agenda item, or we should vote to take the action?
I would caution that Mr. Henning is not going to provide a solution tonight. And and I had actually put him after the presentation, only after our staff report and the vote on this, only because he hasn't been here. He has no idea of what's provided in the valley and he can tell you what he will do as a contractor for the city. If you ask him specific questions about the SOS or the safe parking program, he's not going to know because he hasn't had the time to. And
I see.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so he's working for the city of Petaluma, but they have all different things going on there.
I see.
I have a suggestion.
All right.
Jack, I have
Yeah.
a suggestion. With
Yes.
that in mind, then I ask the city attorney if we can vote on it, and of course, Councilmember Felder, however you feel, as you've heard from the city manager, Mr. Henning isn't going to give us any answer to this issue. Is this something that we can move on?
In this way, I think that we
Excuse me,
can take the
I'm waiting for him
motion.
to answer.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
of course, if somebody makes a motion,
Okay.
the council can consider.
I move to make the motion as resolution of the City Council of the City of Sonoma authorizing the city manager to extend the memorandum of agreement of understanding with Sonoma Overnight Support SOS for the implementation and operation of a safe parking program in the police department parking lot at 175 First Street West.
I'll second that motion.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
No.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 3-1-1.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
6.2, adopting the resolution of the City Council of the City of the Sonoma establishing an ad hoc advisory subcommittee on populace and appointing the 2 council members to the subcommittee.
Mayor Ding and council members, on Monday, May 18th, back in 2020, the Sonoma City Council adopted a resolution that authorized the city manager to create and implement new COVID-19 pandemic-related reopening and recovery measures for our businesses. This would be accomplished through the issuance of temporary use permits, encroachment permits, and other licensing procedures that would allow the city businesses to expand their operating space through the use of public sidewalks, the plaza, Grinstead Amphitheater, public rights-of-way, including parking areas and roadways, while respecting social distancing requirements. And this program is known as the Sonoma Alfresco Program, With the recent decrease in COVID-19 cases and the reduction of impacts from the pandemic, the City of Sonoma would now like to consider the future of the program that allowed the issuance of the temporary use permits under the city's alfresco program. So staff is recommending the establishment of an ad hoc parklet advisory subcommittee and the appointment of 2 city council members to the committee. This subcommittee will be charged with analyzing issues that may arise during staff's consideration of the future of the program, such as design standards, consideration of impacts, costs, and duration. The subcommittee will have support from the city attorney and other city staff as the city manager directs. The subcommittee will provide recommendations to the city council from time to time, but no later than March 16th, 2023, or the termination of the temporary nature of the alfresco program, whichever occurs later. After its final recommendation to the City Council, the subcommittee shall automatically be disestablished, and as a temporary ad hoc advisory committee comprised of less than a quorum of the City Council, the Parklet Subcommittee may, but need not, comply with the Brown Act as authorized by Government Code Section 54952, Subdivision B. So we're asking Council to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sonoma establishing an ad hoc advisory subcommittee on parklets and appoint 2 council members to the subcommittee.
And just for the council's information, the deadline there for it to act, March 16th, 2023, that's an arbitrary date that I chose, which is a year from today.
Okay.
Just in order to ensure that it is an ad hoc subcommittee and not a standing committee. So there is some discretion that the council has in changing that date.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think Bob, I think you have.
I may have preliminary comment. I asked that this item be put forward on an agenda because, in fact, we have been informally working with an ad hoc committee that fell out of the zoning code ad hoc. And it seemed that the matter was serious enough and needed proper attention of the council, and so that I wanted it to be formalized. And certainly I would volunteer that I would serve on that committee, and I would also recommend that Council Member Barnett, who has been participating thus far, be the other council member. If they have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I think we've made some progress with members of staff and the community. At this point, we have both Chamber and Visitors Bureau involved, and so I think we have optimism that we can get somewhere starting at this point, but I think the 2 of us would like to continue in that role if it's at the council pleasure.
That's great.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because I was going to say, I do not want to be on that subcommittee, and I knew that you and Kelso were there, and I think you would both give a very balanced idea. And I love Kelso's idea for the future of what it could be, rather than, I won't call them whatever I think they are.
I'm always in favor of, if you miss a meeting, appointing you to something. So, so I'd be happy to, encourage the appointment of the vice mayor. I thank you. I appreciate, Mr. Felder, that you brought this forward. I think that all over the country, people are wrestling with this. I see this every day in the papers where I think the mayor of San Francisco just extended theirs for another year, and it's, we're making policy, as we're creating things, and it's a new experience, but I have great confidence that we'll come up with the right solution. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. If any planning commissioners you are invite them into your committees?
We have the ability to invite whoever we think is appropriate to attend.
Okay.
And the planning chair, Ron Wellender, has been attending these meetings up to this point, and we would probably ask him to continue to do so.
Okay, that's great. Basically, our subcommittee represents an all community. Yeah, that's great. All right, so then let me open to the public.
We expect big
Yeah,
things
so-
from you.
Anybody from the Zoom?
Yes, we actually have Cody Binkley.
Okay.
Hello, Mayor Ding and City Council. Cody Binkley here from B&V. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thanks again for having me and let me speak regarding the parklets. It's good to hear that the possible extension to March 23, 23. I've been working on it for a couple days. I've been talking with Mark and Visitors Bureau and some people in the city. Being the first parklet, buying the first K-rails and having those not be right, and all of us going through these, like she said, making policies right as they are. I've basically been conforming different data, and it just all goes back to basically 2017 and then 19, trying to go over the losses that this town has gone through. And it's just took a lot of money to buy these parklets, and I just hope that we all get on the same page and get all the data correctly and just figure out what's going to work out best. Like, kind of in Europe, and you see everyone that's more uniformed, which I understand, which would be better a look for the city, which is completely understandable. I know some people are going to be very upset, but it's going to be what it's going to be, and I'm just hoping, and I'm very happy that we can work together.
Thank you, Cody.
So I have a comment. Did we close the public? No.
No, yeah, maybe more. No more.
There's no one else raising their hand, so you can.
Okay. Is there more comments in this room? No. All right. Let me close public comments.
Thank you so much. With respect to the parklets, I'm glad that council members Barnett and Felder will be on this ad hoc committee. I am sort of done with the parklets. I think some of the, there's so many, we initially voted for this because we really knew they would be in trouble. And I think that some of the numbers are showing some really great figures. And those are the things that I'm looking at to be associated with keeping parklets open. I think there are some issues I think I brought up with council members about the, and I think, I don't know, a city manager has put into the whatever, I've never seen it, about if there are accidents at these parklets, that, not you, Ms. Casey, but if there are accidents, they need to be reported. And there was one serious accident and one half serious accident. So, and nobody said anybody, I just went out to lunch with someone, he told me he was hit, unconscious, and a concussion. So from one of the structures of a restaurant I won't name. But I think those things are important. And I also am very excited about some of the ideas that Kelso Barnett has. I don't know how we can move forward to that. I may not even be alive at that time, but it's still, they're great ideas. So I appreciate he and Mr. Felder. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Sandra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we made some comments previously on this, and I just want to reiterate that I have also some concern for the businesses that don't have parklets and not restaurants, other shops and so forth, retail that that they have expressed concern that is there something for them that could also help with their businesses. And I know that's maybe outside the scope of this ad hoc committee, but I think we should also consider all of our wonderful businesses around the plaza. I, for one, enjoy the parklets immensely. I love being outside, and I think that people have really they've enjoyed it, and more people. There's more space for people to have their meal, and the weather is beautiful here. So I'd like to see somehow that it continues, but I also, I have concern about the other businesses and to make sure that they have maybe some special accommodation that can also be offered. I don't know if it's inside the scope, but I'm curious to see to hear your thoughts on that.
To your point, Mark from the chamber is in process of sending out a survey to all of the businesses on the plaza to request their ideas on what they think is appropriate for a parklet thing. And certainly he is very concerned with the rest of the retail establishments that are not restaurants. And so we're trying to, and that is within the scope of what we're trying to do. Some of the things we're considering are perhaps giving them the opportunity to take advantage of a sidewalk environment, even though it isn't a restaurant. So there are things that we can do, and we're also looking at ways that we can try to minimize or eliminate the reduction in parking spaces, which would help the other merchants. So those things are in the mix.
That's great. I have a suggestion. Because the parklets issue is not only in Sonoma County, almost everywhere. So maybe we can, look at somebody else, other than places and how they can then handle. Because everything, it's kind of new, and also I'm not sure in the short term, maybe the 3 years and the 5 years, in the long term, and the 10 years or the 20 years. That is we should balance this. Yeah.
And that indeed is also part of our charter. The staff has already been providing us examples of other cities and what they're doing and the language that they're using. So we are taking all of that in consideration. We're not going to try to reinvent the wheel. We're going to just make the wheel better.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we need someone to introduce the resolution. I'd like to yield to
ahead.
Councilmember Felder. Do you want to introduce this?
Sure. I would like to make a motion that we pass a resolution to establish an ad hoc committee for parklets, and I would request that myself and Councilmember Barnett be the two council members.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Yes?
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Agenda number 6.3, discussion, consideration, and a possible action. Oh,
Actually, we have our presentation.
Ms. Henning is coming? All right.
Not Mr. Henning. It's Lynn Rosselli from the
Sure. Okay.
Sonoma County Water Agency. Thank you.
Are you able to see my screen and hear me?
Yes, we can see you and we can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. Just give me one moment here. Okay. Good evening, council members. I am Lynn Rosselli, Administrative Services Division Manager with Sonoma Water, and my colleague Jake Spelling, Finance Manager, who is on a well-deserved vacation, prepared this brief presentation on the proposed water transmission budget and rates for your consideration. For those of you who are not as familiar with Sonoma Water, we have a number of different enterprises. Tonight, we're only going to be talking about the water transmission system, and I just want to make clear that the water transmission system funds are not commingled with any other funds of the Sonoma Water, but we do provide services in all of these areas. This is a graphic that shows the three main aqueducts. The Sonoma Aqueduct is in the far right there. I think it's kind of colored light blue or green. And Sonoma, the city of Sonoma and Valley Moon Water District pay the budget and rates associated with that particular aqueduct. And just wanted to let you know that we engage annually in a collaborative process with the water contractors. We begin by presenting draft of budget to a technical advisory budget subcommittee and receive their input. We appreciate the collaborative process. It's very productive, and we have been able to come to what we believe is a good proposal for a budget and rates for next fiscal year. And this just shows the schedule of events with the Water Advisory Committee vote on April 4th, and then adoption by Sonoma Water's Board of Directors on April 19th. The water transmission system, the budget is broken down into operations and maintenance, the sub-funds, there are 4 of them, 5 capital funds, and debt service funds for water revenue bonds, and our state revolving loan fund that was used to construct Collector 6, which is one of the main water production wells in the system. I'm going to start off by talking about the budget for for capital projects. We have a number of hazard mitigation projects that are critically important to maintaining the or shoring up the vulnerabilities of the water transmission system. The budget for these is $3.2 million. And these projects are mostly seismic hazard mitigation. One is a flood mitigation project. They are under construction and they have offsetting grant revenue so that it can smooth the rates for the water contractors. We have other capital projects that are also important. 2 of them to point out are the Sebastopol Occidental wells and the Todd Road well. These are production wells that we are working to bring online to provide more water supply reliability during the drought. Another one of the very important objectives and goals for next fiscal year due to the lack of rain. So not only hazard mitigation projects, but also production wells. We will also be doing not only rehabbing and getting those wells online this summer, but also implementing aquifer storage and recovery to help bolster water supplies for the future. And we have a significant amount of grant funding that is also offsetting that particular project. So our capital projects budget for next fiscal year is $13.3 million. And moving along to operations and maintenance, we had established a rate increase that was lower for this fiscal year, in large part because of the COVID pandemic and because of the financial hardships across the county. We did defer some maintenance. Our engineering and O&M crews have indicated that some of these maintenance projects, including tank recoats and cathodic protection, can no longer be delayed without incurring further damage to the system and incurring infrastructure issues and problems and failing infrastructure going forward. We have a significant budget for both the tank recoats and the cathodic protection. The tank recoat program, we have 18 storage tanks and we'll be recoating all of them over the course of the next 9-10 years at least. We also have several studies that are seismic related as well as water supply resiliency studies. So again, the theme is seismic hazard mitigation, other natural hazard mitigation, and water supply resiliency to support water supplies during the drought season. The budget for the O&M part of the budget is $38.7 million. And then the sub-funds, we have the Dry Creek Habitat Enhancement Phase 4 project that is going to construction this summer. We have a significant Army Corps cost share of 65%. This also is a significant cost savings to the water contractors. So the water contractors pay 35%. And then the other significant part of the sub-fund budget is the water conservation program. This is critically important during the drought. We will be doing a lot of outreach and education. We did drought drive-bys this past year. We will probably be doing more of those since we are not getting sufficient rain. We do have some offsetting grant revenue that is helping offset some of those costs as well. So the sub-fund budget is $13.9 million. So we have a total budget of $71.83 million. We have $15.31 million in grants, use of fund balance, and bond proceeds to help offset those costs. But the main drivers, again, are hazard mitigation projects, tank maintenance and cathodic protection, the Dry Creek Habitat Project, water conservation, and we're also issuing $15 million in revenue bonds to help smooth the cost of all of the capital projects over the course of the next several years. And this pie chart helps us just see that the distribution or allocation of the costs, operations and maintenance make up the majority of the budget. And the issue here is that for operations and maintenance, they are funded almost fully by rates. We are not able under the restructured agreement to get loans or bonds for O&M type projects, operations and maintenance projects, so it really relies on rates. And there isn't much grant funding for routine operations and maintenance as well. However, on the capital project side, we will be using fund balance, grants, and the bond proceeds to fully fund capital projects so we don't use the rates for those. And then the biological opinion, as I mentioned, is offset with Army Corps cost share of 65%. And then we have water conservation, which does have some grant funding that is offsetting those costs. And then here is a rate setting calculation that's prescribed by the restructured agreement for water supply. It requires that we take the lower of the average of the 3-year annual average water deliveries of the last 12 months of water deliveries. And you can see that those are very close in terms of the number of acre feet delivered. And then when we take the cost of operations and maintenance or the revenue requirement and we divide by the quantity of water sold, we get the cost in dollars per acre foot. And that gets us to the rate that is shown there. And this is an example. It's basically to show that, the rate is fully volumetric and it is very sensitive to water deliveries. And in drought years, when there are water restrictions, it certainly puts an upward pressure on water deliveries. So the rate increase is shown here for the Sonoma Aqueduct. It is 6.52%. With a discretionary charge or capital charge to build fund balance for future capital projects. The City of Sonoma and Valley of the Moon Water District determined that a $38 per acre foot capital charge to build fund balance for future projects and to also help fund hazard mitigation projects was needed in order to continue to make progress on capital infrastructure projects and system reliability. And as we worked with the budget subcommittee, the TAC budget subcommittee, we went through a number of rate reduction measures. We started with a budget of 9.99%. We brought it down to 6.84%. Sonoma Aqueduct determined to stay at a rate increase of $38 per acre foot on the aqueduct capital charge, resulting in a rate increase of 6.52%. We managed to bring the rate down by spreading O&M costs over a couple of years. We found that we had a high impact of the cost for cathodic protection and the tank recoats hitting in 1 year. So if we spread those costs over 2 years, we're able to bring those O&M project costs down or operations and maintenance project costs down. We are using a significant amount of fund balance. We're selling $15 million in revenue bonds. And we're using $4.9 million in offsetting grant revenue, all helping to bring this rate increase down. And this was negotiated back and forth with the water contractors. And then this is a graphic that shows the wholesale water rates for other wholesalers within the Bay Area. You can see that Sonoma Water Agency is on the left side of the screen there with a little over $1,000 per acre foot and a rate increase under, at the 6.52%. On the Sonoma Aqueduct. These other wholesalers are experiencing rate increases of 7% or more. And in particular, because of the drought, they may have some drought surcharges, although not all of those have gone through their board approval process yet. And so just to summarize, we have a rate increase of 3.47% this fiscal year. We have a rate increase on the Sonoma Aqueduct of 6.52% for next year proposed. We are presenting to city and town councils and water districts. We are asking that the city make a recommendation to their water advisory committee member to prepare for the vote at the water advisory committee meeting on April 4th, and then we will take it to our board of directors on April 19th for approval. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. I have a quick question. Recently, we have the inflation, the rates increase significant. If any, the impact for the future on the water rate?
Obviously, we're in an inflationary period right now, and pre-COVID, we were experiencing a CPI. Consumer price index of something on the order of 3% or 3.5%. Right now, at the moment, we're experiencing more like 7%, so it's very high. Our rate is below that inflationary period, but we're hoping that over the course of time, as we get into the next fiscal year, perhaps there will be some stabilization of rates, inflation rates. We believe that the rate increases in coming years will depend significantly on water deliveries, whether or not we get any more rain this winter season. It's not looking great. And whether or not we will continue to apply for more grant funding that is available, whether it be the infrastructure funding or the state drought funding. We will be aggressively pursuing all funding options to keep the rate increase at 6% or lower than 6% going forward. We believe that City of Sonoma, because you do not have a large user base, because you don't have, it's economy of scale, you don't have a lot of customers on the aqueduct, so it's more difficult to maintain a lower rate increase, but we believe that roughly speaking within that 6% range going forward, that we will be able to do the hazard mitigation projects, implement those drought resiliency projects going forward. And again, we'll aggressively seek any grant funding that we can apply for. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sure.
Liz, this is Madeline Agramani, and I just wanted to ask, have you benefited at all from the infrastructure money that may be coming, or has come, or will be there?
We are still waiting to see the infrastructure money come down. The drought funding from the state, we have been able to tap into, and we've gotten more than $9 million worth of grant funding for the production well projects. So there's a significant amount of drought funding that we are getting, and that is significantly helping keeping the rates down. We will be pursuing the infrastructure funding. We are still waiting for it to come down. We will also be applying for more hazard mitigation grants. We are actively working on the design of the hazard mitigation projects on the Sonoma Aqueduct, the Sonoma Creek crossings, and the Bennett Valley Fault crossing. We're trying to get those designs to a place where we can actually say, we have a very good basis for what the costs are going to be, and then we're going to apply for that FEMA hazard mitigation funding as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Any question? All right. Thank you again for your wonderful presentation. We want to see you soon.
Thank you very much.
All right. How about
We're waiting for Andrew.
Andrew is ready? Or?
We can continue on the regular calendar while we're waiting.
Right.
Mr. Mayor.
And I actually just had one comment on her presentation. So we did a 5-year water rate study, and we're in the 2023 will be the last year for the rates that were approved by council. It was an average of 6%. We averaged 6% increase over the 5 years and it hasn't always reached the 6% increase. So I think we're covered on the rates for this year. So.
Great. Financially, we can support this increase. All right. So right now we are to wait for Mr. Henning, or
so if we can go to 6-3.
all right, 6-3. That's
He's still putting babies to bed. So
yeah, today is perfect. Yeah, 6-3. Discussion, consideration, and a possible action to approve resolution and employment agreement appointing Sue Casey as acting city manager, effective February the 16th, 2022. I think that David should give us background.
Thank you, Mayor Ding and members of the City Council. David Ruderman, Assistant City Attorney. I'm going to be handling this one so as to avoid a Government Code 1090 problem for our acting city manager. As you know, this council appointed Ms. Casey acting city manager on February 16th. And since that time, your council has worked with the city attorney to prepare an employment agreement. Under the Brown Act, we are now required to prepare and to provide a verbal summary of the salary and fringe benefits of any executive officer of a local government prior to approval. So whereas in the past, something like this probably would have just been on consent, We now do need to give an oral summary, and that's what this report is. Essentially, the agreement provides for a salary of $215,900 a year, which is the amount that was made previously for the city manager, and benefits at the same level as department heads. Otherwise, the terms and conditions allow for the acting city manager to return to her role as assistant city manager unless there is a for-cause termination. But otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions. We're just looking for approval, considering that the council already appointed Ms. Casey in February.
Any questions? How about you? I have a question. You just mentioned about the compensation. If any difference compensation and the benefits between department and heads and city manager?
Compensation, yes.
Okay.
My understanding is that benefits, no. And between the department heads and the city manager in terms of benefits.
The same or no?
Different.
But why you using directors?
That's
Director
that
and
was how it
heads.
was.
Because right now you are the city manager, right?
Well, for the 90 days that I'm acting city manager, it was discussed and we just decided that just for the salary.
Logistically,
Yeah,
it's-
and that the extra benefits that were provided to the city manager would not be for the acting period of the 90 days. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you. I have no any questions. I want to open to public. Looks like no. Let me close the public. We can make the motion. Zoom? Oh, Zoom. No.
There's no one on Zoom.
Oh, no, Zoom. All right. Yeah.
Well, if there are no comments, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Yes.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Agenda number 7, council members' report and the comments. You have one.
Oh, I do. I thank you. I was appointed, thanks to this council, to the Continuum of Care Board, and we had an orientation meeting Friday, and I met people from the department at CDC, Community Development Commission, and they introduced themselves and let me know what their roles were. One of the things I'd love to dispel that, people seem to talk about all the time, other cities were there, other agencies, and basically what they've said was, with homeless people, they don't want to move out of their area. Maybe if you're from Santa Rosa and you go to Petaluma, maybe, but most people, and I think they said they felt that it was very common for the West County, which is Sebastopol, Russian River, that area, and Sonoma Valley, that people do not want to leave their area, even if it means you have housing. They don't want to leave. Many are born here, raised here, went to school here, and, have found themselves in an unfortunate position. A couple of things. I'm going to be on the Coordinated Entry Committee, which I think is really wonderful for us because it's something that we've sort of missed, and I think Mr. Henning might, as we go along with him, we'll be able to explain how important that is. And the other thing, of course, I was put onto the funding program, which means that grant proposals that come to COC, I will be part of that board that will be working on that. So I'm excited about that. I didn't want to be part of bylaws or charter because they'll lose me right in the beginning. It's too much. too many details. So I just wanted to say, and unfortunately, my zero waste meeting has been canceled, and the one thing I've heard is there is a church that's doing recycling, and I think Sebastopol, so I have to find out how that might be working, and maybe there's something here that, may have a conversation that opens. And those are my reports. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, the Sonoma County Transportation Authority meeting was this Monday. It's an excellent meeting. There was a lot of data regarding biking to school and really specific mapping that I think we'll have access to, which might apply. We talked about safe routes to school as something that the city needs to look at. I'm looking forward to getting their report and getting, it's already packaged. And so once we get their slides and whatever, I think it would be something that we'd all want to look at, especially now that we have some bike lanes that we didn't have previously. So it might be a good idea to take a look at a safe route to school. The May 4th will be the Sonoma County Bike to School Day. Something I brought up on the call, I said it's just as important for people who are not biking to school to know it's Bike to School Day as it is for the kids, because we should be aware that the students will be biking to school in greater numbers perhaps on that day. And so that's May 4th. And they have some wonderful materials and so forth, and look forward to sharing some of that on another agenda perhaps. Thank you.
Great. Bob.
Yes, I attended the Sonoma Clean Power Board meeting on March 3rd. Just a couple of things that came out of that meeting. First of all, the enrollment of Sonoma City in the Clean Start program is at 87.5%, so we have a very large percentage of people in our community that are signed up for clean power. They will be establishing new rates on April 1st based on the PG&E bundled rate changes that were made in March, but they do not anticipate that there'll be much change to the rates. They've managed to find a way to keep things pretty steady. And one other thing is we voted for support for Assembly Bill 1814, which is the Transportation Electrification Funds for Local Electric Vehicle Infrastructure. So hopefully there will be some money available for creating more infrastructure for electric vehicles. That's it.
You have more?
One thing.
Yes.
I didn't attend this meeting, but I'm a great fan of CNBC, and CNBC has said that PG&E and GM are going to be partnering. So when your car EV is building up, I guess, credit, you can actually apply that to your home as well. So I think that's absolutely wonderful. And if I could get my husband to get over distance anxiety, I think our next car will be an EV. I can't make a promise.
I should attend the two meetings. However, these two meetings are all canceled. First is the Sonoma Valley Groundwater and agency's meeting was canceled. Another meeting is First District Susan Gorin's and Sonoma Valley leadership, and the meetings also canceled. So now I'm looking for the next meeting. And recently we are work on unexpected event, that is a Ukraine honor event tomorrow. I encourage everyone when join this, show our support to the justice and the integrity. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And here I would like to give them more credits for our local nonprofit organizations, sister cities. They are knowledgeable, they are very active, and when invasion happened in the second day, we already sent another letter. That is amazing. And closely and connected with the outside city, Kaniv over there, and also we raised some little funds. Yeah, so that is represents our community, and also, and basically, our city is kind of small, but it's very, very sophisticated. We have the 7 sister cities, some of the big cities, even there's only 1 or 2, even none. So it shows our city and our citizens have very good world vision. That is very, very cherished. Thank you. All right, so maybe we can move to agenda number 8. City manager comments and announcements.
Great. Mayor Ding and City Council members, I'm very happy to report that the City of Sonoma's Building Department has maintained its building code effectiveness grading classification score of 2, with 1 being the best and 10 being the worst. This rating is for both residential and non-residential properties within the City of Sonoma. The evaluation for the classification is done every 5 years by the Insurance Services Office Incorporated, and the high rating helps to keep property insurance rates lower for homeowners and businesses within our community. So I'm just really proud of the excellent work that Wayne Wyrick and his staff and team have done and continue to do to maintain this great classification. So as the pandemic health requirements for masking and proof of vaccination have been curtailed, the City Council at the last City Council meeting decided they would return to in-person meetings only beginning April 1st. So that means tonight's meeting will be the last hybrid meeting, part in person, part Zoom held. And Rebecca will be posting a press release on our website stating that and we'll also be pushing notifications out to all our social media sites. So starting with the 4/1 date, all commissions and committee meetings will follow suit and will be held in person only as well. And do you have any questions about that? Yeah,
I do.
Okay.
Does that include presentations? Or is that simply,
It should be presentations, but I mean, it's not, I mean, that's.
It's up to the council if they want to do that.
I would like to make presentations still be possible on Zoom, just because, there are often people who are experts in something that live, maybe in Los Angeles or San Francisco, whatever, and I think, we're a small enough city if people want to come in person and talk, and, I think that's a reasonable expectation. But considering the fact that we're trying to curtail the use of fossil fuels and so forth, that perhaps it might be more environmentally conscious if if people live maybe outside of 50-mile radius or something, that we allow them to do their presentation via Zoom. I don't think it makes any difference, but certainly up to the council to decide. But my opinion is that it wouldn't matter. I mean, like the presentation tonight, for example, on the water agency, I didn't see any particular reason that it would be any less effective, should she be here. So.
I'll just make a comment, Councilmember Lowe. We have invested the money in our system to be able to make this possible when we were going to hybrid full, for permanently. So we definitely have the capability of doing it. We do just need to remember that we do need extra time because we have to have the individuals on staff to do the electronic part of the meeting. It's not just an automatic where it pushes it all out. So that's just something to keep in mind. Definitely doable, for sure.
Just through the mayor, I would certainly support Councilmember Lowe's comment on this thing, that we leave that option open, because there are many instances where somebody can give us a report and it's not necessary to be here in person.
Totally doable.
Yeah, I think that is right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just one more thing, as a reminder, tomorrow for the press conference, very exciting event. We're getting, lots of work has gone into this. Lisa Jansen, our event manager, has just done a tremendous job in getting it all coordinated. And also Jenny Yankovic has worked tirelessly to get everybody together. And so, but just to remind you, at noon, it starts at noon. We'll be limiting traffic to the Horseshoe starting at 10:30 to allow for setup. And then access in and out of the Horseshoe will be closed from 11:30 to 2 p.m. So, and I think you got an email about your instructions as city council. So, okay, great. And yay, Andrew is on and
Oh,
he's
wow.
ready to present. We did it just
That's-
right.
Okay. Or maybe we finish. Or how about David? Do you have any comments?
I have no report this evening. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, we finish in all. All right. All right.
Good evening, Andrew, you're on, so we can see you.
Okay, would you like me to go ahead and start?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, just wanted to double check. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you this evening. My name's Andrew Henning. And yeah, thank you again for enabling this hybrid setup where we have 2 babies under 2. So navigating that has been interesting. But I just wanted to share a brief presentation, a little bit about me and the proposed scope of work that's before you. So I'm going to share my screen with a short presentation and then turn it over to you for questions. So let me pull this up. Let's see. So again, I'm Andrew Henning. I run Andrew Henning Consulting LLC. And so this is a proposal for beginning to assess where the system is in Sonoma Valley for addressing homelessness. I have approximately 20 years of social sector leadership experience, with almost 12 years of that being specifically on addressing homelessness in the Bay Area. During that time, I've provided frontline outreach in some of the region's largest encampments. I've helped manage a growing nonprofit and worked as a social worker case manager, helping people get employment opportunities. And then I've also worked in an executive level in local government, overseeing homeless policy, as well as affordable housing policy and renter protections. During this time period, I've also earned my MBA from UC Berkeley, and that really shaped a big part of both my work over the last decade as well as my work that I'm trying to do moving forward, really around trying to improve systems of care for really vulnerable people. So to that end, about 2.5 years ago, I started my own consulting firm, which is basically just me at this point. But given my previous employment history as well as my consulting work, I've now had experience in Santa Clara County, Marin County, Sonoma County, and San Francisco. So a real range of small rural communities, suburban communities to large cities like San Jose and San Francisco. To kind of characterize the sort of 3 major buckets of the work that I'm doing, one is really around helping communities develop strategic plans, financial models, evaluation frameworks for how they're addressing homelessness. The next is really convening different stakeholders around what I would call collective impact models to really bring together different people with different views to try to drive systemic change around homelessness. And then lastly is really just from a project management perspective, trying to create new housing units in the communities where I'm working. So over just the last 18 months, I've been involved with creating over 300 permanent and interim housing units. So just briefly to go into a little bit more detail about this, just to show you some of these projects. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has been just so tragic in many ways. And when it comes to homelessness, at least, the state has been finally investing a lot of new resources in housing and homelessness, which has been really great and something we've been waiting for a long time. So just this week, you might have heard that I've been working with the city of Petaluma. We're pursuing a Project Home Key site for 60 permanent supportive housing units. So that's one of the projects I've been involved with. I've also been involved with 3 different home key sites in Marin County. So this is a project that's currently being developed in Larkspur for between 43 and 50 units of, again, permanent supportive housing. last year with Home Key 1, I supported the team around acquiring a hotel in Corte Madera that's just about to be opened as permanent supportive housing, and then also another project in San Rafael that was 44 units. In addition to the Home Key program, one of the things I was really proud of last year was helping basically forge an agreement where all of the cities and towns in Marin County, every single one of them, using ARPA funds, pooled funding to create 4 years of intensive case management that was then paired with emergency housing vouchers from the federal government to create 68 new units of scattered site housing throughout Marin County. So again, not only creating new brick and mortar, but also funding services for vouchers and being able to house people throughout the community. And then beyond that, also in the city of Petaluma right now, this is going to be opening in the next few weeks, hopefully just the next few weeks, is the People's Village, which is an interim housing program for people experiencing homelessness. And then also, when I was still working with the city of San Rafael, creating essentially a sanctioned encampment area for people to actually have a place where they could have restrooms and garbage pickup, on-site security, and then a place where outreach workers could go and engage folks and work on housing and other options. So again, over the last year and a half, a lot of movement in terms of creating new housing opportunities for people experiencing homelessness. While I certainly loved that, I mean, it's great to be able to finally create a lot of these units. Again, my real passion is really this systemic approach to homelessness and really driving systemic change. And this was sparked by a change management process that happened in Marin County over the last 6 years. So this could easily be a 30-minute presentation, so I'll spare you. But in short, what we realized, again, about 6 years ago was that there was a lot of concern about unsheltered homelessness and the impact of homeless service providers in downtown San Rafael. And over a series of months and years, through convening different stakeholders and learning about different communities and how they're approaching homelessness, we reframed the issue to really understand that the issue was, in fact, chronic homelessness or long-term homelessness and people that have disabling conditions that make it a lot more challenging to actually get back inside. And unfortunately, over the last 4 decades that the modern homelessness crisis has existed, we've created this system that's not really designed to serve those folks very well. And so the details of this map are less important than the overall theme, which is that for people that were inherently difficult to serve, who had a lot of, again, behavioral health issues, addiction issues, traumatic brain injuries, things of that nature, our programs were not designed to support those folks. And so people were failing out of our programs, they were becoming more distrustful of the system, they weren't seeking help, and their situation got worse. And it got to the point that there were people in Marin County, and this is the case in every county, it wasn't just unique to Marin, who had been homeless for 10, 20, 30 years, stuck in this vicious cycle. And so really what we did, I was a big part of leading, was designing a new way to really prioritize these folks for supportive housing and get them back inside. And to that end, I wanted to show, hopefully the streaming will work well, but I wanted to show you a short video to show you just the range of partners that were involved in this and the impact that it created. So I'm gonna play a short video for you now.
This is where I used to live, right here. I was chronically homeless, been homeless for years. I felt like I'd been thrown away by society. I felt that I'd really, really screwed up in life, and this is my punishment. I just didn't know how I was going to get from point A to point B. The gap was enormous that needed to be bridged, and I couldn't do it on my own. I went by myself, and I was praying and just saying it over and over again. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. God help me.
I've been doing this job for 5 years, and when I started, it was difficult to coordinate care from the different agencies and from the county because we weren't talking to each other.
We're able to now help somebody with their housing. We're able to help them with their health care. We're able to help them with their behavioral health needs. We can help them with their social needs, help them to get income. We can do all of that with one team.
I think the partnership is important because no one organization can do this alone. It's a really strong and ever-growing team of partners that are coming to the table to address this issue of homelessness.
We went on some field trips to go and see what other departments or cities had done or counties and brought back some of those practices to Marin.
Placing people into housing is the first step in healthcare. So we're going to end up saving the system money and providing a level of care and support to these folks who most need it.
Giving them the dignity of having a place to live, take a shower, cook a meal, have a safe place to visit with a friend or have a family member over. Something that really means something to us.
We all want to see people be placed in a position where they get to thrive and be a productive citizen.
The platform that they provide gives people the opportunity to rebuild their life.
I cannot believe that I finally have a car in the driveway and have a place to live.
Without that, I would have failed. I would still be caught up in that struggle of chronic homelessness.
Being treated like you're a real person means the world.
I'm completely in a sustainable situation now. You know, I will not become homeless again.
So again, hopefully the lag wasn't too bad and you got to see that video, because I think it really speaks to the profound transformation that took place through that systems change process. And just to put it into perspective, when we first started that effort, it was actually almost exactly 6 years ago. And so over the first 18 months of that work together, we housed 23 of the most vulnerable chronically homeless people in San Rafael. On October 1st of 2017, this personalized focus on chronically homeless people, getting them into supportive housing, that became a county-wide policy. And today, basically 4.5 years later, about 450 chronically homeless people have been housed through that effort. And you can see here, this was a snapshot from last year, the kind of month to month, we're now housing about a dozen and a half people per month. And the overall retention rate for all these folks that have moved inside is about 94%. So again, this has been a profound shift from where we were to where things are now. So in terms of the work that we could do together, I know that the city is under a bit of a time crunch to get something together quickly. And right now I'm actually doing some work with the city of Petaluma, doing a strategic plan for them. That's been more of a year-long process. You know, it's a lot more in-depth, a lot more work that's gone into that. But I think there's been a lot of great learnings. And I think, you know, without knowing a lot about your city specifically yet, I do know a lot now about the overall coordinated entry system in Sonoma County, many of the players at a county level. So it's not necessarily starting from scratch, which I think is really positive. But based on, I think, models that I've developed in other communities, my plan would basically be to work with staff to identify key stakeholders to interview, potentially host some working sessions, perhaps with the business community, certainly want to meet with the local service providers, any other stakeholders that, again, staff or the council feels like I should be talking to, I want to talk to. As part of this, I think it's extremely important that we include a listening session with people who are actually currently or recently have been housed but were formerly homeless in the community. I think that is such a key part of the planning process to really understand their experience, what they're going through, what they see as opportunities and challenges. So that would also be part of this. And then again, from work I've done in Marin and Sonoma and San Francisco, I've developed basically a program inventory tool and assessment that I would be hoping to deploy or roll out with local service providers to understand not just what are the organizations involved, but what are the programs that are actually being operated for people in need. And then, as you saw earlier with the sticky note map, how do they all fit together? Because again, you know, I think you can't really understand a part of it without seeing the whole thing. So again, how does it all fit together? And again, based on talking to staff, the goal would be to have this analysis completed within by June 30th. So with that, I will pause and see if there are any questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. You have a question? Yeah.
Yeah,
Senator Lowe.
I read this article somewhere regarding San Mateo County and how effective they've been in, they said, basically eliminating people experiencing homelessness. What do you know about what they're doing in San Mateo County that we might learn from here in Sonoma?
Well, interestingly enough, the program, I didn't go into a lot of detail about it, but the program that we ended up implementing in San Rafael and Marin County more broadly was based on a program in San Mateo. So essentially what happened was, again, back at that time, there was a lot of community concern and frustration about unsheltered homelessness in San Rafael. And so a lot of the thinking was around, well, we just need to build a new service center, or we need to do something of that nature. And having worked in Santa Clara County, I actually, before I even worked for the city of San Rafael, organized a field trip down to Palo Alto to see this one-stop service center, which I still think is an amazing place. It's called the Opportunity Center. But the organization that runs the Opportunity Center is a San Mateo-based organization called Dignity Moves. And when we were describing to them some of our challenges in San Rafael, they actually recounted that they had had many of those same issues, specifically with chronic homelessness in downtown San Mateo, roughly around like 2010. And so they walked us through, basically the police department got tired of citing and interacting with the same people over and over again, and the service providers were dealing with the same folks for years and years and years, and nothing was happening. So they began this process of creating a by name list of the most vulnerable, high needs, high risk folks in the community. And then every other week meeting as a team and trying to get those folks into permanent housing. And so by the time we met them in 2015, they had, according to them, essentially ended chronic homelessness in San Mateo, the city, and they had scaled the program to 4 or 5 other communities in San Mateo County. So I know that right now there are still people experiencing homelessness in San Mateo County, but they had a huge impact in terms of chronic homelessness through that program. And that's ultimately what we also adopted in Marin and have had a huge impact as well. So that's my knowledge of what they've been doing.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, Andrew, this is Madeline Agramani, finally happy to meet you. We've spoken, congratulations on, you have a new baby now.
Yes.
So things are moving along. It's interesting you mentioned San Rafael, and I, was very familiar. We talked about that Ritter House, and their winter shelter was the Jewish synagogue. And I remember going into San Rafael, it almost destroyed their business district because Starbucks, there were so many people there, I thought it was a bus stop. And it was really unhoused, people who were charging their phones and, at Starbucks, and they were there. So, I was gratified to see someone from Ritter House because I know that they've had some tough times like we have, and I'm hoping they're on that another level right now. And I wanted to ask you a question. The 50 temporary places in San Rafael, where are those? And I didn't get the name, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that program is being called the Safe Sleeping Area. Or sorry, no, actually, I always think it's the Service Support Area. And it's been a partnership with Caltrans. So it's located in a freeway area where there'd actually been a large encampment for most of 2020. Into 2021. So, and again, typically, unfortunately, cities are in a difficult position where they're having to enforce against unsheltered people, and that's just not a sustainable thing or something that really any of us wanted to be doing. And so, as an alternative, the idea was, well, what if we could turn part of this area into more of a support center where people can, be there in peace, work on their housing, we can have outreach workers go to them, there can be phone charging power, and it's really that interim step towards getting people into permanent housing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a little bit about it.
So there's been a lot of changes in San Rafael. I'm so happy because it's so beautiful. My background is with Shelter Network in Burlingame, and they merged, of course, with Santa Clara County, and they obviously provided housing for a lot of people. I ran a food program in Daly City where I lived for many years. So I was one of those people against low barrier. it made me crazy. I didn't understand it, but I've been convinced, and maybe if you could expand on what I'm talking about when it comes to low barrier.
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. I know it's kind of, as homelessness unfortunately continues to get worse throughout the state, it's something people are really questioning around how are communities approaching homelessness and should it be low barrier or what's the best way. In my opinion, to oversimplify what is a very complex issue, there are largely two experiences of homelessness. For most people who become homeless, it is in some way generated by an economic crisis, like a rent increase, an eviction, a job loss, or some kind of relational issue. So let's say a domestic violence situation or just a household breaks up, right? And for most of those folks, homelessness is actually a relatively brief experience. It lasts a few weeks, a few months, but people are able to relatively quickly get back on their feet. And so I think in those cases, having a more quote unquote high barrier program where maybe there's sobriety requirements or there's a job requirement, that might make sense for folks that are in that boat. My personal belief is that we should just help people resolve their housing crisis as fast as possible, not condition that aid on other programming. But again, that's one kind of avenue of homelessness. The other type of homelessness is what I've been referring to as chronic homelessness. So those are people that have been homeless for a year or longer, and they have some kind of disabling condition. So a behavioral health issue like a mental health issue or a substance abuse disorder. They might have a physical disability, a traumatic brain injury, or oftentimes many of these issues at the same time. And so for those folks, when you create barriers like a program requires certain sobriety, or a program requires that people have to be working, those folks are simply screened out. And so again, it might seem like the most intuitive thing that we should create those barriers or those requirements, but again, they screen out the most vulnerable people. And so the whole idea with, if you've heard the concept of housing first, is that, and this has been replicated many, many times across the country, and it started in the 1990s in New York, but the idea is that rather than putting preconditions on housing for people that are chronically homeless, you move them into housing, wrap them in supportive services, and that is actually, in some cases, 200, 300% more effective than having people try to go through the barriered treatment first approach. So that's sort of how I think about it. It's a little bit nuanced, but the idea is really housing's the crisis. We have to solve the housing issue for people.
Right, thank you so much. And I think when you have that low barrier, as you mentioned, there has to be those wraparound services, because I think those are really important. So I just am so excited to be able to even, to work with you, and because I think you may have listened earlier, the issues of our safe parking program, which is, I think they just put a new safe parking program in Santa Rosa, 50 cars. So, there are just so many different things going on. So I really appreciate this, and I want to say thank you to Sue Casey, who is open to the idea, because I think we're sort of flailing. I was lucky enough, thank you, with the support of this council, to be on the COC board, which I think is important. And I'm going to be on the coordinated entry subcommittee and funding. So those things are important, and I have found that not just Sonoma, even the big cities are having problems. So it's not just us. And I've always said, I even said it to the Board of Supervisors, we're so beautiful, nobody thinks we have problems. We have the same problems, we just have less zeros in our budget. So I appreciate your bringing your expertise to us and speaking to everybody. There are so many programs here. They said in Sonoma, the second most favorite sport here is writing a check. So there are a lot of generous and wonderful people here. I don't think sometimes that's our problem. It's just that we need to coordinate. And I think the new move of reorganizing the COC will help those problems go away. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Andrew, this is Bob Felder. I really appreciate having you come on board and give us some fresh ideas on how to approach this. Certainly we have been flailing for some time now with this chronic homelessness issue. And we're sitting in a situation where we have people in areas that are really not compatible use areas for them to be at. And if we can solve the issue by moving them into some housing and move people along to a more permanent situation, I think that really makes a lot of sense. So I'm looking forward to see what you can do in the next 90 days and see if you can come up with some ways to move this program forward for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. We are expecting you for a while. I'm interested in your two numbers and the comparison. One is homeless and another is the jail, right? So that is for homeless, you just spend $25,000 per year. How did you calculate it? I'm just curiosity.
Yeah, that's a good question. So there was you can search. There's something called the Chronic Alcohol Justice Involvement Study. I think it was in again about 2015 in Marin County, and there have been other cost studies related to homelessness. There's a pretty famous cost study from Santa Clara County. I forgot exactly the name of it, but basically, the study in Marin found that people that were chronically homeless and had chronic alcohol issues and some involvement with the justice system, if you calculated the public cost of those touches with the public system, it added up to about $60,000 per person per year. And in Santa Clara County, that study found that for the top 10% of people that were homeless in Santa Clara County using public services, those folks were costing $80,000 per year. Again, this is going to the jails, involvement with the police departments, healthcare systems. And so the alternative, while it can seem expensive, is actually by comparison much better, both economically and morally. And the calculation for that is really, I think the easiest calculation is if you were to look at the annual, or you could just look at the monthly payment standard for a housing voucher, like a Section 8 voucher, and then you add on top of that whatever the appropriate per capita rate of case management would be for a case manager that has a caseload of, let's say, 17 people across a program. So if you add those numbers together, and they're always going up, unfortunately, with at the cost of everything, but it's about $25,000 per person per year for the supportive housing environment.
That makes sense. Another question I have is how to help the homeless population to find a job, get back to regular track. I saw that you have many cases in your video. They get a job, and they don't want to. How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I spent roughly half my career in workforce development, so helping people to get jobs who had been homeless for, in some cases years, even decades. They had a number of barriers like criminal backgrounds, which can be a huge deterrent to employers. So, I think my general just takeaway from all those years of working is that almost everybody experiencing homelessness wants to in some way work or at a minimum be involved and contribute to the community. For some people, they might be have a disability in such a way that it's very hard for them to work, or they can only work for a limited number of hours. There's also a lot of complexity around for people that, because it can take many years to get on disability, and then if you start working, then you can potentially lose. So that system is kind of rigged against people to both have that safety net and continue to work. But my general experience is that most people really do want to be involved in the community. They want to help beautify the community, volunteer in the community, work in the community. The barrier is oftentimes that lengthy history of unemployment. And there have been a number of studies that have shown actually employers are more likely to hire someone who has zero relevant experience to a job but is currently employed versus someone that has job history specific to the job but has been unemployed. So I think that's one of the things that communities can do, and it was something I was involved with, is helping people in the homeless community volunteer to get some kind of work experience, because once they get that momentum again, and again, it's something people want, they just don't have that opportunity, then it's easier later to then go get a job. And I think the other piece to that too is really working with and engaging the business community, because again, I think if there can be a link between the person that's seeking the job and the employer, and someone that employer can call if something happens. That's just an added layer of support that can really help job placements. So those are at least two things that I've seen be really impactful for helping people get jobs.
It's wonderful.
Andrew, I'm sorry, I just have one more question. So how
Yeah.
will you begin your process here with us? If you have that idea yet.
Well, we're moving quickly, so my plan is to try to really, work with staff to really, I think from the day I start planning a number of interviews and meetings with local stakeholders. I think that is, I think what's good, again, is I have a general sense of how, the COC, coordinated entry, the county operates in Sonoma, but I am a bit of a blank slate in the city of Sonoma, in the Sonoma Valley. So that would be my goal, is to work with staff right away to identify who are the local service providers I should talk to, what are the other relevant stakeholder groups. Again, is that businesses, is that the council itself, is that local philanthropic groups. Talk to them to understand what's going on around homelessness. That'd be number one. Number two is, at the same time, begin to work with those service providers to plan this lived experience listening session, where the way that I do that is that would be basically probably like a 3-hour event where I would have anywhere from maybe half a dozen to a dozen people who, again, are currently homeless or recently homeless, and I would be providing a meal for them, compensating them for their time, and we would just have a discussion about what their experience was around homelessness in the community. So we want to start scheduling that right away as well. And then lastly is this program inventory, which again we don't need to start that from scratch. I already have a pretty robust survey that we can start to administer. So it's really just, I think, in some ways, it's a bit of a scheduling issue, like how quickly can we get this stuff going? And then, it doesn't take that long for me to then consolidate all the insights and then have something to report back. So I think we can actually move pretty quickly once we get going.
Thank you, Andrew.
Can I ask you another question? Financially, the city, according to your experience, how much the funds usually the local government provided, except for the nonprofits? I know a lot of the nonprofit organization provide a service, provide the fund. How then are the local government, for example, in the city of the Sonoma, involved and also made an investment?
Yeah. So, what's interesting is, I've seen a lot of different strategies for how communities approach that. So I think one thing that has been unique right now is that the federal government, through, again, unfortunately, the pandemic, led to a lot of investment in local communities. So I know a lot of communities, like, I'm working in Petaluma right now, have been really able to leverage their ARPA funding, their American Rescue Plan funding, to invest in things that historically they have not been able to invest in. And again, I think one of the things, having worked in local government specifically for a city, is that cities have many of the reactive kind of tools around social issues. So they have police departments, fire departments, public works, things like that. I think one of the ways that cities can really invest is around housing. So if they're going to be new housing developments or other programs, being able to invest capital dollars to make those things a reality, especially as there are programs like Project Home Key at the state, which really depend on having that local match. But again, usually it is the county that provides more of this ongoing safety net social service funding. What's interesting, and I just pulled it up very quickly. I don't know if I have it. I don't have the exact slide, but one of the recent projects I worked on was actually creating a community business plan around homelessness in Marin, and that looked at all of the revenue sources for how homeless services in the county are funded. And a relatively small percentage, I think 5% was actually coming from cities and towns. Another 10% or so was coming from the county. I know it was maybe a 3-to-1, something like that, 4-to-1. But most of the money actually was, another quarter was probably from private sources. So individual giving to local organizations, philanthropy, a lot of money from the state. And then again, the other thing, which I think has been sort of unique in Marin, is really leaning into federal housing vouchers as a way to fund housing placements. And again, I meant to say it, so I'm glad you asked me again. earlier when I talked about the cost of providing supportive housing for someone, what we have found in Marin, and this would be the case almost anywhere, is that for every local dollar invested in case management or social workers that can then be paired with a federal housing voucher, that's basically a 3-to-1 match of local service dollars for federal housing subsidies. So I think getting that kind of creative partnership in place can lead to hugely leveraged local city monies. Because I know cities don't really have a lot of money to put towards homelessness, but there are, I think, good investments for how to use that money.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you again. Any more questions?
No.
Do we need to open to public, right? Your questions or no? Presentation, no required. Okay. All right. Thank you, Andrew, again. Your time and your experience. We want to work together. We are expecting. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
It's the time for us to join the meeting. That today is the quick.
Lucky us.
Yeah. All right. If there's nothing else, I would just close the meeting. Good night to everyone. Move to adjournment. Move to adjournment.
I'll even second that.